start with the family environment. As you were just telling me a few minutes ago, you're the one that wears the makeup and the wigs and dyed hair. Can you tell me what it was like probably from the very beginning, growing up in the Caudill home?
Well, I'll tell you, when you grow up in the family and you're the oldest, you are responsible for the younger ones. And, oh, I can remember many instances in life. I'll never forget once when the first cars came to Moorhead. Now, you know I'm 88 years old, so you see I date back to a lot of things. And, of course, I was responsible for Louise and Boone. I just had the two then, brother and sister. And we were on Main Street in Moorhead. It crossed, and I went first, and I didn't pay attention to them. So the central agent for the telephone company was right upstairs, so she called Mother to tell her that I had let the children and that the car had to slam on the brakes to keep from hitting them. Well, that was quite a lesson. And when you did something Mother didn't want you to do, she had you go outside and she switched your legs. She never really hurt you, but she wanted you to remember. And if the switch wasn't good enough, you had to go get number 2. Well, we had the lovingest mother and the kindest. She was always doing something for everybody else. And all of us, I remember many children she'd bring to our home and put them in the bathtub and get them all scrubbed up nice and clean and put new clothes on them. And then wash after them and see how they did, and have them to see her frequently. And then Dad was more outside family, outside the home, I might say, not the family. But he felt more concerned about, well, taking care of the funds and seeing that we got to do all the things that Mother wanted us to do. And fortunately, we never had a need of any kind that I know of, and we never were spoiled. I mean, there was never that idea of having what you want and doing what you want to. It had to be discussed and had to be voted on by, we always had family meetings every time a question came up. Dad believed firmly in the democratic procedure. He was a lawyer, you know, and had gone to Valparaiso, Indiana, and I can remember him celebrating his 50th year as having graduated up there, and they honored him, and that was nice. But his main belief for all of us was that we have all education we'd take, and that you and I, being in the arts and studying voice and drama, voice mainly, he once said, because I kept going from one school to another where I would get a scholarship, and once in New York, when I was working on a degree in drama at Columbia, and then I had a Juilliard scholarship, and I was studying with, well, 3 people at the same time in voice. And I think it was simply a wonderful idea, and I would suggest it to any student if they could possibly do it. Well, now my dad couldn't afford those, you know, the price of those lessons was beyond then. But I would go in and I'd get in, and then I'd say, well, I can't afford these lessons. And they would make arrangements for me, and they would keep me. But I studied with 3 at once. Frank LaForge and Douglas Stanley, who were very different, and then Robert Bauer at Juilliard. And I can remember Daddy saying, well, I said I would let them go to school as long as they wanted to, but the way Lucille's going, I don't know whether I could do it for all of them or not. But I was setting up quite a pattern. But he never had a problem with educating us. And we all had a very pointed conviction of the work ethic. I mean, that was what they taught us to do. Like I can remember on Saturdays, we'd all get out and we'd wash the cars, wash the windows, we'd do the grass and whatever Mother wanted, and then Dad had a camp for us down on the river, on the Lincoln River. And we'd go down there and we played all kinds of games. I never will forget one Christmas they gave us bows and arrows, and we didn't have a target. So we had to get together and we got some straw and rolled it, you know, and tied it up and finally get a cover and painted it. And so we had our target. And we did swing, of course, and fishing and boating. And he was one that loved croquet. So we played croquet, and then we had to be good to beat him. And he would challenge you. But anyway, we did all of those things, and it was a great thing. And we, well, it satisfied us. You know, today it seems like youngsters want to go and meander and wander away from home, and I guess that's really the parents' fault. But I think the reason we have all this problem of violence among young people is the fact that their parents don't make plans for them. And ours did that, and I'm very, very grateful for it. And each had a responsibility for the other. And we were never indulged. Dad would even once a year sit us down like at New Year's and tell us what he had in the bank and what property he owned and what his plans were for the coming year and all of those things. And he would let us vote on a lot of the things. He thought we ought to know, and I think that was wonderful. It taught us a great deal to be very specific in analyzing situations we would be in the rest of our lives. So I give great credit to my family and my parents. And we had a wonderful time together, and we had our problems. We had some illness. The youngest son had, oh, well, I don't know what you call it, some intestinal disease when he was just after he learned to walk. And we thought we were going to lose him, and I can remember they had to have a nurse come from Lexington to take care of him in Moorhead, you know, was where we lived. And then I can remember other things. The only thing that ever happened to me was always in my ankle. And they finally wouldn't let me have a bicycle. Every time I had a bicycle, I'd sprain my ankle. So that's the only thing I have regretted in my family, was that I didn't get a bicycle. And I never was good at riding one. And I remember on my wedding honeymoon, we went to Bermuda, and there were no cars, you know. You had to ride the bicycle, so I did. And I had a wonderful time. It was kind of a learning experience, but fun.
How many, now there's 5 of you, right?
Yes.
What were the names?
Well, I was Mary Lucille. Louise was Claire Louise, and there were 3 years difference in us, and then there were 3 years difference in the next one, who was Boone Proctor. My mother's maiden name was Proctor. And then there was 6 years, and Mother almost had a baby family, you know, for the rest of us to take care of. And the first one was a boy who became Boone was a lawyer, and then came Bud 6 years later, and he was a dentist. And then came Patty. And Patty's the one that got married and had 5 children. So she took care of the fact that Louise and I didn't have any. Well, Louise couldn't. She didn't get married. Well, I don't know. You could today. You don't seem to have to get married to have babies. No, you don't. Which is pretty bad to me. I'm still, a lot of Victorianism is in my whole idea of the culture.
Maybe we need more of that.
Well, I think we do. Yes. I am on the Board of Trustees over at Midway School. And just recently, about a week ago, I think,
your sister. Were you surprised she became a doctor, or?
Oh, no. Honey, she was all her life playing doctor.
What was she like when she was little? Little girl?
Well, she was having a circus. And there was a boy that helped her. And they kind of put on the circus because I wasn't going to pick up snakes, I guarantee you. But they had snakes and all kinds of bugs and things that they showed in this circus, and they rode Betsy the pony. And, oh, you know, poor Betsy. We would get 5 deep on her. And she was a Shetland pony, black. And Betsy sometimes would tell us off and knock us off. But there was one time that we took her up one of our neighbors' homes from the 1st floor to the 3rd floor, and there were parquet floors. And we got her up there, and we got her head out the window so the town could speak to Betsy up on 3rd floor, and she refused to come down. So finally, oh, when Miss Evans got home, she really had a fit with us. And we did everything we could to encourage Betsy to come down the steps. And finally, we got her down the back steps. But the crazy things you do. Louise was a part. I was always in the drama end and singing. And if there was anything at church or at school, I was always trying out or longing as I watched someone else do it. But, and I would go into the hills. I loved the hills. And I had my special place. I mean, as far as I was concerned, it had my name on it, and I had ownership. And what I did was rake leaves to make a living room and a dining room and a kitchen and whatever. And I would get in there, and I could sing to the hills on the other side of the valley. Or I could speak as loud as I wanted to. And nobody told me to shut up. So I, from the beginning, oh, and then I had a terrific experience. One of my best friends was Mary Sue Miller. Oh, she lives in Louisville now. I can't think what her husband's name is. They were both teaching down there. Oh, what is his name? Something like Snedeker, but that's not it. Well, anyway, she played the piano, but horses were galloping. She'd gallop the piano, and when they're making love, she would get down to the sweet tones of love. And it was quite an experience, and I saw a lot of movies, of the old movies. And I think I got good training from that. And then at Moorhead, we had a wonderful school all the way around. I was able to take private lessons in everything except ballet. We never had ballet, but we had folk dancing and tap dancing. And I had one of the best drama teachers I ever had, Evelyn Royalty. She was just great, from down the western part of the state. And you know, down there they have a wonderful theater now, the Cave Run. Yeah, a horse cave. Yeah, it's fabulous theater and great acting. And well, then we had a voice teacher. And she is still living right at I don't know, she might be 100 now, Emmy Schrader. And it was just great, the opportunities that we had as children. We had Chautauqua every summer. You know, that was always a high-class type of entertainment in drama, mainly. And I think it's still going. Really? I'm pretty sure it is. But Moorhead, fortunately, had a school always, and I think any small town, if they have, I don't mean high school, I mean a special school, and this was a normal school, they called it. And our parents both went to school there. Yeah, before Dad. Now, Mother didn't go any farther than that normal school. I think taught teachers. I believe that's what it was. But Dad went on to law school up in Indiana. So, oh, he was always, education is the thing. And he's instilled that in all of us, that in my mission statement, the first thing I say is, it is for education. Specifically in the fine arts. And I say fine arts, but there's much discussion about what's fine arts and folk arts and all the other arts today. And there's a lot that's called fine art that I actually, to me, it isn't fine. And then I see some folk art that is so interesting to me. I used to say if I could do it, it was folk art to a girls' boarding school that used to be on North Broadway here called Hamilton, and it had been organized pretty much by professors at Transylvania so that their daughters could have early education. And it was funny, they had what did they call it? Well, they had a junior school in back of this. Hamilton was a great big unit of living quarters and places for classes and eating and all of that business. While back of it, then they finally built for the grades. And my husband, as a youngster, went back there to the grade school. That's what they called it. And, oh my goodness, go.
Okay, say that again. When she did what?
I can remember when she made the final decision that she was going. She was visiting me, it was after I was married, and we were going to the circus. And oh, it poured the rain. We had a storm. I'll never forget it. She ruined her new shoes, and we were concerned about that. But she had decided that she was teaching then and head of the women's physical education department at Moorhead. And she decided that when she got the sabbatical, which was coming up, that she was going to finally go to med school. And a boy in her class, and one of them, you know, our close friends, Bob Bishop, he was going to go too. His father had the drugstore there in town, and they have remained good friends always. But his father died, and he had to take over the drugstore, and never got to really go on and be the doctor that he'd planned to be. But he has been very supportive of Louise, and they've remained very good friends. And of course, you know, he got most of the prescriptions. Well, I don't mean that she played to that. But you can see the difference in us. I mean, I dye my hair and I put all the makeup on, and she just does like that to her hair. She's the only one I know of that doesn't care about her hair. I think every woman I know goes to a beauty salon and they're prissy about their hair. Well, I can't be very prissy about mine because it's naturally curly, and naturally curly hair is stubborn. It does what it wants to do, but I don't have to have a lot of things done to my hair because I just wash it and kind of shake it out. But you see that difference, and I wear the makeup, and I think I look better. And he doesn't, but she's 3 years younger than I. And we went to school together at Ohio State. I had a scholarship up there, the first one they ever gave in voice. And so she decided to go up there because they had wonderful science department. Fact is, Pop, I can't think of his name. What was his name?
Well, hang on. You think of that name
at Ohio State, but he was head of the chemistry department. And he had, you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, anyway, the head of the chemistry department at Ohio State had just returned from being in California with the group that isolated the atom. It was a momentous occasion in science in the country and the world. Well, I was called in. The head of our, I think, Romance Language Department was Harlan Hatcher at Ohio State, and he'd been raised in Moorhead. And so he called me in and he said, now, you've got enough hours for a master's degree and you don't have a bachelor's. I want you to get the bachelor's degree. You have to take chemistry 1 and you have to take biology 1. I had always been silly. Thinking of his name, we called him Pop something. And he had us make an atom with, I can't remember, proton and neutron, or that's not quite right, is it? Well, anyway, and I was used to making models for the stage. So that was fun to me. And then when I got into the laboratory part of it, I had this girl that worked by me that was beautiful, and she was tall, and she was black. And she said, now, I'll just tell you about it. You just stop worrying. It's just like cooking. So that made me like that. And then I thought, oh, well, I'll never get through the biology. And so I was saying that around the sorority house. And they said, oh, we keep copies of all of the exams that are given. One at Moorhead, I think, before she went up there. Okay. While she was teaching, she took some classes she knew she would need for matters and for medicine.
Now, she was 3 years behind you.
That's right.
What was she like being the younger sister, the next one? Were you all close? Were you?
Well, not as close like now I think we're best friends. But I wouldn't say so. Like when you were 17, and she was just a little thing, you know. She wasn't in her teens. So I was, you know, far and ahead of her. In authority, I had to tell them what to do. I had to protect them, that's really what it was. But, you know, I felt that authoritative attitude. And she was beautiful. Well, not that she isn't now, but she's let herself kind of go. And when she was in college, I think she was one of the most beautiful people I ever saw. And there are some pictures around. And we've lost a bunch of pictures. I think we let people have them and they don't bring them back. It's a whole lot the problem. But I can remember at Ohio State, I thought she was one of the prettiest girls up there. And she always has had a movement. When I think of Louise, I think her and the movement, her movement. And it fascinates me how she's always had wonderful control of her body. She was very good at all sports. She was a great tennis player. Up until recently, she played all the young people in Moorhead and she could beat them. But she could always do flips. And all of them could except me. I was a pretty good swimmer, but that was about it. But she being in athletics made her need to be professionally good. And she was. And she just handled her body so rhythmically and beautifully. I always thought that was a great thing about her. And of course, she had to study the muscles and the movement. I can remember when she was teaching swimming. And she was trying to get some of them ready for contests of some sort. And what she did, she got a movie, maybe for Christmas, and she started using that teaching. And she would show them themselves swimming, and you know, all you have to do is see yourself and you see the problems. And I thought it was a great thing that she did in teaching because it simply glorified what she was trying to say and so communicative. And I think she was a great teacher from that beginning. And Louise has always had a talent for listening. There is a picture of her in that magazine, Grass, with a little girl. And holding her hands, the little girl has a hat on and very fancy. And here's Louise in her white jacket. And she's, you know, reaching to her for something. And that says so much about her to me. She was always able to reach out to people, and it was through listening. I do it through yappity yap, I never shut up. And particularly since I've had hearing aids, you have no idea. If you can't hear, you talk. And that's my problem right now. I talk too much.
What do you think of her? That was very beautiful, by the way, everything you just said. What do you think of her as a doctor, professionally?
I think the listening. I think the listening is her greatest quality as a doctor. You have to know the person. You have to know them historically, their parents, as far back as you can. The history of health in that family guides you to diagnose whatever their problem is and how to talk to them. And I think her power of listening to all of this, not that she can't talk because she can, but I think that's an art with her. And then I think she understands the body. Having worked with those swimmers and all different types of sports events, you know, you study the movement of the muscle and the whole body and how it coordinates into this, that, and the other you want it to do. And I think she has a great understanding of all the functions of the body. I mean, she played doctor as a little girl. She was always playing doctor. And we had somebody else that played nurse. I can't remember who that was. But always she wanted to be a doctor. And she was always taking care of the doll's problems and some people's problems too when she was young. And that grew in her. And the understanding of people and their backgrounds and adding it all together makes, well, your history makes you, and your physical history, particularly your health and well-being upstairs. And I think that she's great at that. I think as a diagnostician, she's outstanding, and I believe that she is recognized for that more than anything, except you know what they all say, until it's become a fantastic thing that I don't think anyone believes, that she delivered 8,000 babies. And I guess she did. You know, she was coming from Cincinnati over on the Ohio side back to Maysville before coming to Moorhead not too long ago. And here came the siren and the blinking lights. And she knew she better pull over on the shoulder. So she pulled over on the shoulder and prepared herself and rolled her window down. And here came this man with his pad and his pencil. And he looked in and he said, "Oh my God, I can't give you a ticket. You brought me in this world." So they remember her. You know, here this grown man and trained, and still he remembered that she brought him in. I don't know who, yes, I do know who brought me into this world. I had an uncle who was a doctor, married to Dad's sister, Dr. Skeggs. Red-headed as he could be, and my hair used to be pretty red. You have to be careful now with the bottle, because you'll turn a flaming mame if you're not careful, and I have a time or two. I don't care for that. But I have always had the interest in the arts. And not that Louise, you know, keeps the arts out of her life, because she does. There's no thrill that she enjoys any more than going to New York and seeing plays every day. In fact, we're going to London this January, and we're going to see plays every day. And I hope afternoons too. We're to get afternoons because we both feel that we've been to England enough to see all of the tourist places, and not too interested there, but in the theater, yes. But she loves the theater, and I wouldn't say she was as taken with art, but you know, there's so much that is criticized about the fine arts today, and some terrible grants have been given by our NEA, and they only pick out the horrendous things. Just recently, there were two.
Anything else you want to say about?
Well, of course, I just think she's wonderful, and she's had so many, many awards that, well, she's always gracious with them. She's had about 4 honorary degrees. I mean, in law, fine arts, I don't know what all. and then multiple organizations have honored her. And I can remember her saying she went to Ashland once for some women's organization. And they were involved with business. I don't know what the name of it was. But she felt like that was a very interesting point for women, that they need to know more about business. And perhaps our father being in the banking business as well as law, that we'd heard a lot that helped us tremendously. But, you know, I read recently, I don't know whether it was University Med School or Louisville Med School, that they were having a course for women in business. No, it was a hospital. I believe it was here in Lexington. And they, the doctors hadn't had time to learn how to take care of their funds or so on, so they were having them trained by the business department, and which is a great thing. And I think, fortunately, we never had any needs. I don't think we ever had what I would call, just carte blanche, whatever you wanted to do. You always had to kind of plan about it. And I've been amazed that Louise and I didn't get Dad to let us go abroad until after we were adult. But we've done a lot of traveling. And my husband and I, and she and Susie, and then our sister-in-law, Jane Caudill. And we've been many places over this world, and many places we didn't stay long enough that now I'd like to go back and stay. I always had a dream of, in fact, one of my good friends and I, Helen, had an idea that we'd like to go to maybe Switzerland or Italy and spend a year and have our husbands commute whenever they would.
Wait a minute.
She has...
You said you did what?
I look up to her. I don't envy her. I never have that feeling about anyone. But with honor, what she has been able to do to keep people going. You have to have good health. Have to. Or life wouldn't mean much. You'd have to really fight for life to mean anything. And what she's meant to the whole family health-wise has been fabulous. And if so, those that are close to her, think how she has reached out to all of those that respect her, admire her, and come to see her. And that's why she's still in her office. You know, if you've had a doctor all of your life, or even for the past 5 or 10 years, you don't want to change. That person knows you, and you want that person to take care of you. And I think that's why, I think she would really like to relax, maybe, and settle down, maybe write, or do something of that sort, maybe tour a little more. But people just won't let her. She's so much a part of their lives that she just can't break loose. It'd be more different from breaking loose from a child when a child takes off from the home. But I think that's it with her. I think it's wonderful to have 8,000 parents. Well, that'd be 16,000 parents looking up to you if she had 8,000 babies. And I'm sure that it's close to that. If it is, I imagine that deduction was made, you know, with some fact to it. I don't think somebody just would have said that as a number. No, I think it was really a deduction. But she is loved in her community just admirably, and it's wonderful to have people like you and want you around, and it is her pleasure, and that's her pleasure to her family, is to have her. Yeah, just to have her is a great thing to me, as my best friend, and I consider her my best friend. And that's the main thing I want to say, and God bless us all. Thank you.
Okay. first of all, let's start at the beginning. When did you meet Dr. Caudill, and what kind of relationship do you all have, working relationship?
Well, I came to St. Clair Medical Center here in Moorhead about 6.5 years ago. And one of the first things I did as a community relations director was to look at the history of the hospital. And I found out immediately that even though we had a short history, it was a really filled history, had wonderful people who had been actively involved in the hospital and its origin. And one of the biggest blessings was the fact that many of these people were not only alive, but were still very active in the community, very involved, still had their careers that they'd first started with. And the most impressive one, of course, was Dr. Caudill. And it was just amazing that a woman her age, who had actually been our founder of St. Clair Medical Center, was still involved in the community. Not only involved in the community, had a very active career. She still has a very active career. She's 85 years old. She sees patients 4 days a week without fail. I've been one of her patients in the past, very successfully. And that was probably the most exciting thing, was to know that Dr. Caudill was here, that she was our founder. St. Clair Medical Center was named after her, St. Clair for Claire Louise Caudill. So that made it really exciting, be able to talk with her, be with her, and learn all of the wonderful things that she accomplished here in our community, and most specifically for our hospital.
Okay, very good.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's...
Hang in there. That was very
okay.
Good. Okay.
Okay, I'll try to do some more.
You're fine.
Okay.
That's perfect. My question, all right, this hospital. Tell me how old it is again. How old is the hospital?
The hospital opened July 1963, so that's what, 34 years old. Oh, I didn't know. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was really answering. Can you edit that?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought you were just talking to me. Okay, let me start again.
We
Okay.
make it 34.
Okay, 34. Okay.
63.
Okay. The hospital was opened in July 1963, but a lot of work went into this before it opened its doors. The whole idea was Dr. Caudill's idea. It originated from her, and her spirit is what developed the community involvement in this hospital effort. Years ago, Dr. Caudill and Nurse Susie were working in their clinic, and that's about all the area had was a clinic. And thank heavens it was open 24 hours a day, because they literally lived in an apartment adjacent to it. So it was like a little mini hospital, clinic / maternity center, and it's all we had. Anytime a member of the community got sick, a child got sick, they would have to put that child in a car and drive it at that time without any kind of interstate. Over 2 hours it took to get to Lexington to get that child so that they could get medical care, advanced medical care. And oftentimes people just didn't make the trip. And Dr. Caudill had seen that, and she realized that that was a really big problem. And for our community to grow and for our families to be healthy and happy, we really needed a hospital in this area. And she didn't want what's called a laying hospital. That's a hospital in which people actually came and they convalesced, versus receiving active medical care. She wanted something bigger than that. And her vision just took hold in this community. And she went to pursed friends, and she convinced them to give money for the hospital. She convinced neighborhood children to have lemonade stands and to put on carnivals for a penny a child. And we still have pictures of that in our archives of some of the children who, I might add, are leaders in this community now, who raised money using everything from dog tricks to clown costumes, and had little mini neighborhood activities. And then after she helped raise money, it still, of course, wasn't enough. It was almost $250,000. And in fact, as I understand it, some of the leaders in the community actually signed personal notes of commitment towards this out of their own family's pocketbook. she found the Sisters of Notre Dame convinced the Catholic Church to serve as management and owner of the hospital, and they did agree. And even that is kind of a miracle story. She'd called the Catholic diocese. She'd asked for Monsignor Tal to come down, see our community and see our need, and it just so happened that he came to Moorhead unannounced, showed up in her office, and she had at least 5 babies that had been delivered that day. And these babies were just in just nooks and crannies all over. There were mothers laying in bed all over her clinic, and all he had to do was see that, and he just said, we will have a hospital in this community. And so it was through her motivation that the Sisters of Notre Dame came, and they've managed the hospital ever since. That, along with Hill Burton funds, helped raise about $1 million that started the first hospital. Hill Burton funds are federally matching funds, and so with the $250,000 the community raised, sight unseen, it was just a dream, and the $250,000 which came with the Sisters of Notre Dame, they added an extra $500,000, and so with $1 million, this hospital dream was born.
What's the hospital like today?
The hospital has gone through 3 expansion projects since then. It's a 159-bed acute care hospital. It recently went through a major expansion, very, very modern technology. But I think the thing that makes our hospital special is because it took on the pioneer spirit that Dr. Caudill had from the very beginning. She's been on our board since the very beginning. Her leadership has been felt in our hospital from the very beginning. One of the things we're most proud of is that we have a home health, hospice, home medical equipment program. Now, a lot of hospitals can say that. Some hospitals don't have that program, but some hospitals do. But very few can say that they have one that's 26 years old. And we have probably one of the most developed home health programs in the state, probably one of the most developed in the nation. And the reason that we have it is because when Dr. Caudill and Susie, Nurse Susie, started, they actually went to the homes. They took medicine to the homes, down the hollers, up the hills, and to the people. And it became very obvious from the beginning that we still needed that service after the hospital opened. And so to address that need, that was begun. Another service that we're really proud of is the fact that we have 4 primary care centers in counties which are underserved, that are isolated, in some instances do not have full-time physicians. If our primary care centers were not in those areas, they would not have primary care. And these services started many, many, many years ago, many years before most of the hospitals even thought about providing primary care clinics. That, in association with our maternity center, which we have for underserved women, women who weren't receiving primary care, prenatal care, those elements of St. Clair are really what make St. Clair special. And all of those elements were elements that just have her brand on them. Dr. Caudill and Susie, both, when they opened their clinic, to serve women who were pregnant, to provide prenatal care. That's the essence of first clinic they ever had. That need is still here, and so St. Clair is filling that need as well. So I think it's the extra regional services and programs which set St. Clair apart, and consequently St. Clair has in the past been named the outstanding rural practice in the United States because of the guidance that she's provided for us.
It's wonderful.
I
don't know how much contact you have with her any longer, but if you could expand upon your personal relationship, and what do you think of her as a person in the doctor aspect? Just what has she done for this area?
Okay. Well, I think Dr. Caudill embodies this area. I think that years from now, when history books are written, that she is going to probably be one of the most predominant characters in the history of Kentucky. And I'm just thrilled about the fact that I have had the opportunity to meet her. And she's a wonderful, caring person, and she embodies the hill of Kentucky, just like she loves the people of Kentucky. And she has their spirit, and they are a part of her. I recently had a family reunion. My family reunion came to Kentucky, and one of the stops was to go meet Dr. Caudill and Susie. And we literally all went over there and got to meet her. And my family felt like we are meeting a very important woman in history. And they were very, very moved by the opportunity that they had. And I think the people in this community, they realize that Dr. Caudill is a wonderful gem, and they appreciate her so much. And just a wonderful, blessed opportunity to get to know her and to be motivated by her spirit.
What do you think, Kitty, in the community?
What do I think? Well, I think that Dr. Caudill is precious, and I feel so personally fortunate to have the opportunity to know her, to work beside her, to feel a part of her spirit, and to show her the deep appreciation that I have for her as a person and as someone who has molded our community and has molded our hospital. And I just feel blessed by the opportunity to know her. I don't know. Is that okay? Yes.
That you were here at St. Clair not long after it opened, worked with Dr. Caudill. If you could tell me what it was like from the beginning.
Well, of course, Dr. Caudill was instrumental in starting the hospital. And actually, I came here at the same time it began, in 1963. She'd already been here practicing about 15 years at that time. So she was very helpful and encouraging to me in my beginnings. And then she and I and 2 or 3 others were essentially the staff of the hospital at the beginning.
Were you involved in the, I know you were here, did you just come here after it opened, or were you involved in getting the hospital started?
No, I just came after it opened.
To this area?
Right.
You're not from here originally? Or?
I'm originally from West Liberty.
Okay. Been there. Man, big, let's see, who's down there? Liberty, that's Lincoln Valley. Okay. Tell me what it was like, especially working with Dr. Caudill from the beginning and watching a hospital grow from the ground up.
Well, she actually, as I said, she and I were, and along with Dr. Proudfoot and a couple of the internists were essentially most of the hospital staff in those days. Did all the work. She did very much of the obstetric care, delivered the babies. I did some of that too, and we sort of covered for each other occasionally, but she seemed to be always available and on call. Worked all the time.
Did
the hospital was on 40 beds then, and so we kept it full pretty much, and then it kept growing.
Yes. So Kate says 159 now.
Something like that.
You work over at the clinic.
At the Moorhead Clinic,
Moorhead
yeah.
Clinic. What was it like in a colleague relationship? What do you think of Dr. Caudill in that respect, in the medical, as a medical doctor, since you both are in the same profession?
Well, she was very well thought of, well respected, and competent. Everybody depended on her for most everything, and especially delivering babies, which was her forte from the very start. But she was easy to get along with and willing to help and cover and be available.
What do you think that she's, this hospital stands, I guess, to a monument of her efforts in this community? What do you think the hospital has done for the people in Moorhead now that it's here, or the whole area?
Well, I think it's been very instrumental in helping the area grow and be prosperous. It's one of the, well, I think it's the second largest employer of people in the area, second to Moorhead State University. and it's a regional medical center. People come from all the surrounding area, at least I think 10 or 12 counties are considered our service area. And in that respect, although she doesn't do much in the hospital anymore, she's, her legacy is significantly been, as you say, a monument to her, and not just name only.
Okay. All right. Besides the medical, her profession as a profession, what do you think of her as a person? Let's put aside the fact that she's been a doctor for 50 years.
Well, I've known her, of course, socially too, and got along well and enjoyed knowing her all this time. She has been very community-oriented too, as far as having with organizations and philanthropic efforts.
Yes. I met her yesterday.
She's had a great number of awards and sort of things that have developed from various organizations, including the medical, but also her alma mater. She was Citizen Doctor of the Year from the Academy of Family Physicians many years ago, and then through University of Louisville, she got an honorary degree, and she's going to get one from Ohio State very shortly, next month, I think. Not an honorary degree, but an award. So it's been well feted, I think. And recognized for her contributions to the community and the regional society in general.
Yes, most definitely. I mean, could you imagine if she hadn't done all that she did?
Mm-hmm.
Starting her hospital, I heard 8,000 babies that she delivered.
All right.
So, could you imagine if we didn't have such a presence like that, or if you didn't have a presence like that in your community?
Right. Most of our babies would have been born either in Lexington or without a doctor, probably.
I'd heard in her older days, they would go to the homes.
Mm-hmm. Deliver in the home, and also in her clinic after they got it built.
I can imagine traipsing through hollers and brush and to get up somewhere that this isn't a very easy area to travel through.
Traveling my wagon and walking, horseback.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. And to what some of those babies have gone on to become. What else can you tell me about her? Now that I think you kind of know what we're looking for here.
Well,
What else do you feel compelled to say about Dr. Caudill?
I don't know anything more to say except that everybody loves her and respects her and admires her. I included.
Very good. Okay. Humanities University here.
I've been here, this is my 9th year.
Okay, and this play, let's talk about that.
All right.
What prompted you to create something like that, and did you know Dr. Caudill that well beforehand, or what's your relationship with her now?
Well, that's a lot of questions, so
Sure.
I'll break it down.
Sure.
When I first came to Moorhead, when you're new in a town, you ask people, you know, who's the best hair cutter and who's the best dentist and who's the best doctor. And so I asked colleagues in communications, and one man said, well, of course you'd want to go to Dr. Louise. They don't call her Dr. Caudill, they call her Dr. Louise. And he said, she is the best doctor that ever lived and takes care of me and my whole family, and just raved on about her. And then at the end said, but she doesn't take new patients. Now that would have been 1990, 89, 90. And of course she was in practice, she's still in practice, and is 85 now. And now she is my doctor. In fact, I just saw her yesterday. But I hated doctors, and I didn't want to go to any, but I just wanted to know who was the best. And then he said, well, you can't go to her. Well, I had a problem, and I didn't want to go to a doctor. And another friend said, well, go to Dr. Louise. She said, I would let her cut my head off if she wanted to, because I trusted her so much. And I didn't want to go to anybody, but one day it was bad, and I was walking down Main Street, and I saw her office, which is a modest, set back from the street, no big signs, and I said, there's her office. What I'll do is I'll go in, I'll ask for an appointment, they'll tell me she doesn't take new patients, and then I can get rid of this friend who's saying, why don't you go to the doctor? And I walked in, and they said, well, come right in. We've just had 2 cancellations, and I said, but you don't take new patients. And they said, well, it's your lucky day. And I was called in there by Susie, who is an absolutely marvelous human being. And Louise came bounding into the room, and I'm sure you've met her, and you know she's radiant. She just shines. And the minute I laid eyes on her, it was, I've got to put this woman on the stage. And I've written plays about remarkable women before, and I wasn't looking for a new project. It was just, I thought, well, there's a reason why everybody in this town respects her and knows about her. It was so evident, but I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know anything about Moorhead. I didn't know about anything. It just hit me, this is what I have to do. And I didn't know how to do it. So I called her and I said, could I have an appointment with you? And she said, surely you're not sick. I said, no, I want to talk about something else. And so I asked them if they would let me do interviews with them, oral history interviews. And they thought that over, and they saw some other things I'd done, and they agreed to do it. And that changed my life completely. So I started interviewing them. And then other people would call me up and say, I hear you're writing about Dr. Louise, let me tell you this, let me tell you that, or you ought to talk to so-and-so. And I could have spent my life interviewing people in this town. But it was an adventure for me because it was discovering this absolutely remarkable human being, and I mean both of them, I should make that plural. So it was like walking into this wondrous life, and I also met many people significant in the town. I met the nuns at the church. I met her family. And so for a newcomer in this town, and I'm a Yankee, about which I knew nothing at all, it was like a voyage. It was a wonderful trip, and it still is. It still is, because she's such a phenomenal woman. She's truly humble woman. She doesn't really think she's done anything special, and I remember when the play was finished, she and Susie came up to Taos, New Mexico, where I went to write the play. And I read it to them, and Susie cried and Louise laughed. And then Louise took me aside and she said, how could you make so much out of so little? And then I cried. And I think that's how she sees herself and what she's done. She said, I just do what I have to do every day. My feeling at first was that her life would be an inspiration to the young women in eastern Kentucky. I don't think they have many female role models. Not that they're all going to go out and be doctors and cause a remarkable hospital to be built, but to tell them that, yeah, if you really want to work hard enough, and those ladies worked hard, very hard, unbelievably hard, that you can really do something with your life. Well, it didn't turn out that way, but that's another story. But that was what I had in mind, and I had in mind to perform it as a one-woman show because it's easier to travel if you're only one performer. It didn't turn out like that, but nevertheless, it was, I don't know how to say it. It's not a big enough tribute to her. I don't know if there is one. I know she has awards and medals and plaques and bowls and silver and ribbons and flowers, and I don't know how you could do a tribute to this woman, to both of these women. They've made such a huge difference in so many lives. I think, and it travels farther, I think, than they really know. But they're still down in their little office every day, or 4 days a week now. And I know that Louise is 85, and I think that they were very supportive of me and almost adopted me. I feel like a family member. Because they loved the theater, and through her sister Lucille, there's a great appreciation for theater. And I think that's part of the reason they were willing. If you can imagine somebody doing your life on the stage in front of you, I mean, that was very generous. They were very generous with their time and information.
Okay, how did it take you to write the play?
Oh my goodness. It's hard to say that there's a time frame because I did so many interviews. I had about 400 pages of personal interviews that I had for a transcript. Then the president of this university wanted to give that play its premiere performance. He picked out a date. He said it's going to be November 12th. And I said, well, it's May, and I haven't written the play yet because I teach, and I was going to take my time. So I was under a certain amount of pressure to write it, and I had an immense amount of material to boil down to a play production, which really can't be more than 2 hours. And so that summer I had a grant to the Wurlitzer Foundation in Taos, New Mexico, and I locked myself in this little studio for June, July, August, 3 months with all this paper. And I knew that when I came out the other end I had to have a play in my hand. So it was written under some duress, but I didn't, I don't know, I didn't see any people. I didn't do anything. I ate once in a while. That was about it. So, and then afterward, I rewrote it, and I think almost all plays are rewritten and rewritten and rewritten. So it's been rewritten, don't put that in, rewritten to some extent. That I did it in Lexington, and I could see, you have to do a play in order to see what needs to be done.
Right.
And so it was rewritten. And now it's going to be in book form. It's coming out as a book by University of Kentucky Press has it, the interviews and the play.
That's what I was going to say.
It wasn't my idea to do that, but that's a long story, but under some pride from people, particularly a historian here who's no longer here, felt that I read the interviews, wanted to read them. And in the interviews, it turns out there's a whole history of the town and the people in it and interactions. So it's really kind of a charming, charming book. And then the play will be in this book as well. So say a performance student could say, well, here's the oral history and here's what you can do with it.
Yes, that's amazing. That's wonderful. Minor at the very beginning, the medical career, or what?
Oh, gosh, I'll have to get a copy for you. Dr. Louise is, the whole Caudill family are very tight-knit family, very proud of each other and of their parents and how they grew up, and they're all very community-minded people. And I think what she wanted mainly was to reflect her love of where she's from. She loves this place. She loves these hills. She loves the people. She loves her family. And I tried to put it in that context, and so did the director and the scenery design. So it did start, it wasn't, oh, here she was born and here she is now. I tried to hit places, but it was a chronology in a sense. A lot of stories of things that happened to them, kind of woven into a time frame. So she talks about her childhood, and I do it as her. And she talks about her childhood and her friends and Bob Bishop, and she went to school, and her family. It's sort of like a lot of stories woven together, leading up to the hospital, because that was really their goal, became to have. Well, they didn't want the kind of health care that can happen in a small town, you know, kind of makeshift, shoddy, not really good. She wanted quality. That's what I believe Louise stands for. And I think the whole Caudill family does. So it's hard to describe it. Like, what the designer did was the stage designer, went around town, and how he found these photographs, I can't tell you, but he had dozens and dozens of black and white old photographs of Louise and Susie and the whole family and the house they lived in, and other people that were mentioned, and the nuns and the nurses and some of the babies. And they had a scrim in the back, and they had 12 huge cutouts. So backstage were about 16 slide projectors. So as I was talking, they would project, and it wasn't like, here's a slide and that's her in, you know, 1930 or something like that. I never saw the slides. They were just flashing off and on and off and on, and it was really, I guess, wonderful. I didn't see it. And then there were some sound effects and a lot. I tried to tell a lot of their stories in the sense of, like they would tell me stories, and I tried to put it into take as well, not just one. I tried to write the play as the story of a town transition in a certain time, certain place, of their problems, how they all came together. Because it was the whole town that built that hospital, she and Susie were instigators, but it took the whole town, the newspaper, the university, everybody. So I tried to make it the story of this place and show that one small person, and she lies about how tall she is, you know. She said she was 5'2", and somebody said, you were never 5'2". How one small person affects the whole place. And in fact, how making this a quality first-rate hospital also helped to make this a first-rate university, because people didn't want to come here if they had children or they couldn't get medical help. And so when they could, of course, that gave the university the opportunity to hire people who wanted the best for their family. And by the same token, the university being here attracted really good doctors, because they knew they'd be in a community where there was some intellectual, cultural life. So the two things went together. And of course, she supports, without this university, it sends most of the teachers out into this area. So, you know, everything affects everything else. And I had something about her that, you know, was an eye-opener to me about how people affect each other, and that you can do something with your life.
I've got a question for you.
Okay.
Since you did all this research, and obviously you tell stories of her career through this play, what one particular incident or story would stick out in your mind about her career?
You know, I can't really think of one story. There were some very funny stories or anecdotal things, but a story that affected her career. I would say I think her personality is such that that had a great deal to do with it, and you can't explain her personality because she's absolutely, well, we're all unique, but she's almost, she shines, she sparkles, she glows, and I remember a quote from a friend Bob Bishop where he said, if Louise has got her mind set on doing something or wants you to do something, you might as well make up your mind you're going to do it, because she won't let go of you till you do. I remember when they got the hospital started, now Louise would still go over to Lexington and take courses. Never let up on her medical studies. And she still doesn't. She still reads all the journals, goes to conventions. She's still learning. And I think the story that was a simple one that struck me the most was how she was in a class at Lexington when they were starting their medical school, and she was asking around, do you know any doctors who might be interested in coming to Moorhead? And this one guy said to her, well, I know somebody who'd be interested. And she said, then he walked away, and she chased him across the street, saying, wait up, wait up, I want to talk to you. And I want to know who would be interested. And he said, well, I would. But I thought that's Louise, kind of, that they would talk to her, they would listen to her, they would pay attention to her, not because she was being political or strong-arming people, or it was pure, genuine charm.
Yeah, I'm married.
Weeks ago, I did part of this play at a medical convention, and I just took sections out to talk about if you're her patient, you understand even more her philosophy of medicine, which I couldn't explain the whole thing, but she will talk to you. And I believe that those of us lucky enough, Bob said, if you get her for your doctor, you've won a great prize. And I dread the day that I leave here and don't go to Louise anymore. Because A, you trust her, B, she's human, C, she doesn't go off. She's had so many years of experience that she can almost look at you. But she'll talk to you. And other people have told me that. And Susie gets really upset because she talks to you for so long that the waiting room people get kind of bouncing around. And you want to say, Louise, you really don't want to talk about my grandchild here. I mean, there are 12 people out there. And she just, well, how's, and twinkle her twinkle in her eyes. And the fact that she'll listen. She makes you talk. She makes you diagnose yourself almost. And she'll let you do it your way. If you don't want to take something or do something, she said, the patient's the best judge. Now, she's saying this, not me, but she may have told that to you. But it's her patience, her love of people is so genuine. We could all learn from her.
Give us a background of your connection with the rural electric program in Kentucky.
I went with Fleming and Mason, RECC, in, it's been now, let's see, I've been in Louise, Kentucky 15, I guess 19 years ago. I went to Fleming and Mason. And then I was on the State Association board for a couple of years or 3, and then they sent me to East Kentucky, and which I still am a director at East Kentucky, and still a director, of course, Fleming and Mason.
And you, where have you lived most of your adult life?
Here in Fleming County, in Fleming. The company sent me to Morehead in 1951. And our son at that time was about 9 years old, and he had got sick on us, ear infection, or turned out to be. Anyway, I got a hold of another doctor in town, like today, and to have treatments, and he didn't give us satisfactory treatment. I didn't think so. The next morning, I got the phone book, and I went to looking, and I found Dr. Louise Caudill. So we in turn went to see her. And that was the beginning of, it would have been, I would say, in the middle of '52.
And you continued, I guess, to...
Right, as a family doctor with her since that date.
So that spans a period of some 40-some-odd years?
Yes, yes, sir.
And you might say that for...
Oh, yes, 40, yes, well, in the 40-some years, yeah. That's right.
What attracted you to her as a physician? What do you consider to be her attributes?
Oh, well, one of the main things I think is her outstanding relation that she has with her patients. And my wife went through a lot of sickness, and Louise treated her, and she just, as a friend, as much, I felt, as she was a doctor. I think it done her as much good to be a friend to Louise. And, of course, her Susie. I don't want to leave Susie out. That's Louise's nurse.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
She's been assisting.
She's with her ever since I've known them, yes. They're together, yeah.
Over the years, she has quite a reputation for treating a number of people. Where do people come from? And you need to tell this to the camera. Do they come from far and wide in this area?
Oh, they come, yes, from far and wide in this area, very much so. In fact, Louise, see, our hospital's named after Dr. Louise, the St. Clair Medical Center in Morehead. And it's well deserving, because she has treated and traveled all over this 5 or 6 county area up in here, taking care of delivering babies and things. She did it back on even his horse and buggy days. And I mean, had to go a lot of times in horse and buggy. And she just, well, you go to around her, you see people go in their office, and you can visit with people from Elliott, Morgan, Carter, Round, Menifee, Fleming. It's all of them, yeah.
Now, you mentioned the hospital. What hospital is that?
That's the St. Clair Medical Center.
And how was she instrumental?
Well, she really, one had the idea to go to raise and help try to raise money, and she did. She got it established here in the county for a group that got together and raised money, and they got the, well, I don't know what the Catholic Association of some kind that came in with her and got this thing started, and then we've got one of the best batteries of doctors, and Louise, of course, they helped bring those in. She's been something outstanding as far as I'm concerned in the county or anything like that. She's been there. And she's the same thing. You can see her on the street, or you can see her in the store, or in her office. It's just, she's always there.
What has she, in your opinion, meant to this area in which she lives?
Oh, very outstanding. I don't know of anyone that has done more for the community as Dr. Caudill. She has, well, just helped in any way, in other way. And she's just been part of it, that's all. And
tell us something about the hours she puts in.
Oh, good. Just about any time, day or night, that you wanted to get a hold of Louise, you could do so. Now she would, the last few years, she has taken a leave of absence for, say, a month on a trip, because she's getting some age, and she did it to relax, but she still holds this office, I think, 5 days a week up here right now, and quit taking baby cases and things, but she still just, I still go to her. I still to her.
Talk a bit more about the patient relationship, just a bit more. You still go to
Yes.
her also, right?
Oh, yes, yes.
Why?
Doctor was, well, he just looked at the boy and said, oh, he's had a cocked eye from birth. And we had him and two specialists on the eye. And one had said we need surgery, the other said no. Said let's wait until see. So when he was 14, they put glasses on him. But Dr. Firstman Reynolds, I don't hesitate to say so, who the doctor was, and he doesn't know that boy, just that eyes bothering him, makes him dizzy-headed. Give him seasick pill and forget about it. And the boy didn't sleep all night and restless until he had a fever. And when Louise looked at his shirt, she said, oh my goodness, we got to keep that from bursting, and which she did. And she just actually is, I think, a very outstanding doctor.
What kind of a relationship does she have with her patients in general?
Oh, good. Very good.
Does she know them real well?
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, she makes an effort to begin to know what people, who she's dealing with. I know that she thought a world of my wife, and of course my wife did her. And back, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, I guess it was, I went in up there one day, and Susie said to me, she said, none of my business, but I want to ask you a personal question. Said, are you and Merle having troubles? That was my wife. Well, I said, not that I don't know, not that I hope not, or something like that, you know. And she said, well, according to the hospital reports, you were divorced, or she was. I said, she'd go around telling that on me, is she or something, you know. And it was just a mistake. It was, gosh, there wasn't nothing there, but they was interested to know. They had noticed that on her papers, and that's how I could ask the question. And
They're very observant. Other question.
well, I don't think that hurt her at all. Really, being a lady doctor, I don't think in this area, it was a sort of a pioneer thing in this part of the state, but she really over well.
Had you known her before you went and took your boy that first time?
No. Because see, I had lived in the other end of the county out at Ewing and around Flemingsburg, and then we moved to Moorhead on New Year's Day in 1951. So no, I had not met her.
What do you think is, when and you can stop and think about this a second if you like, what do you think is her strongest attribute?
Well, I think that her ability as a doctor and as a person, by putting them together, she has used them both so well that anyone who's around her would like her. I mean, she had a way that she done well, and she did not overcharge her. She treated people like just, well, she wanted to be a family of, just like a family. And that's the way she was with you or anybody else that went in there. Everybody's Louise this, Louise that, and she'd call you by the first name and go on, yeah. She just, well, I wished we had more of them like her. Anything she was ready to for anything progressive, she was willing to get in. She wanted in it and worked at it, right.
She didn't take very many vacations in that.
No, she sure did not. No, she sure did not. She held in there, that's right.
What do you think her greatest contribution to this area is then?
Well, I would say this hospital would be, because she has really spent time and money, lots of it. Yes, because she has, yeah, that would be, I think, would be, because she's a little bit always in politics, but she took not an active part like that. She didn't, as far as interfere in politics, she didn't, but she did on this hospital. She worked and worked hard and fought it through. And still today, there's very little goes on around that hospital that Louise don't get approval on.
You mentioned politics. Just what was her role in politics around here as you saw it?
Well, she was very, well, if she knew her, you knew she was a Democrat real quick. I mean, she was like Wendell Ford and Ed Buffett and Happy Chan and those kind of people. They worked real well together. Her and Dr. Dorn were great buddies at the university, and she was very supportive of the university. Well, it's like I say, anything that you had in the community that Louise was for it. I mean, it was right. She didn't uphold all this, anything out of the way, but she was just a good, solid person, and of course she's had a beautiful. Oh, of course, she robbed her home a couple of times and those kind of things, but she just right on through. You know. Yeah.
I think that's good. That's the type of. That's the type.
All my life, since she started doctoring in Moorhead.
How did you meet her?
Climbing the stairs to her old office was located on Main Street.
And what was, were you there to see her?
Yes, as a patient.
So you might tell them that you went to see Dr. Caudill as a patient however many years ago.
I don't know when she started down there, 49.
Well, just say I first met her when I went to her as a patient back when she first started.
Heavens to Betsy, no. Let's go back farther than that. I just remember.
All right.
She was my PE teacher in the 3rd grade at Breckenridge.
And Breckenridge is
training school.
Where
she was on campus as our student teacher.
And you met her at that time?
She was my teacher, student teacher.
Then when did you go to work for her? You work for her now?
25 years.
Okay. And you have been with her for the past 25 years?
Right. Mm-hmm.
So you need to tell the camera that, not, so yeah, just put it in your own words. I've worked for 25 years.
Tell the camera?
No, look at me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
So,
well, let's see, she was my student teacher at Breck, and then I was a patient of hers when she was on Main Street in the old building, which was in 49, I think, or 50. And then I've been working for 25 years.
What, in your opinion, has been her greatest contribution to this area in which she lived?
Well, I think really the doctoring of, seeing the patients if they had money or if they didn't have money. It made no difference. She would still, see them. And we've had them from all of the areas, Fleming, Carter, Elliott, Morgan, Round, Bath. I mean, all the patients, and it really didn't matter if they had the money to pay or not. She would see them.
What were some of her contributions to her community outside of her doctoring?
Well, the church work, MSU involvement, and the Round County High School, or Moorhead High School that she graduated from. Any of the community activities she's always involved in, you know.
How does she manage to put that, how many hours does she put in?
She works from 9 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. That's when the, you know, the office hours. But a lot of times she's here hours past that.
And we've heard about the medical center.
St. Clair, she is the reason, I guess, that we have the St. Clair Medical Center here. She started working and raising funds for that.
Were you around then? Do you remember anything about that or how that came about?
They had so many babies back here, there was no place to put them. I think all the drawers and the couches were so.
So
that's one of the reasons that they did the St. Clair, or started.
Do you recall any of that time, or were you around? Do you remember how that all worked out? Or?
No, Susie, I'll have to tell you on that. I just know there was contributions, I mean, from everywhere.
I'm going to get to the real question. What makes Doc Caudill so special?
The work that she does, I mean, she does for everyone. She, as I said, the doctoring, and if they need someone to come to the house, she would go to the house even now. And the contributions that she makes, I think, is...
Why did you want to work here?
Why did I want to work here? I have no earthly idea. And by the way, as I said, I've worked here for 25 years, but I've never had an interview. She's never interviewed me.
Still waiting for that interview, huh? Okay.
Didn't even have to file an application.
No.
What do you think are her strongest attributes as a person, not just as a doctor, but as a person? What do you most admire about her?
Well, I think that the involvement with the community, and of course her church work, and that would take a whole lot of it right there, the community in a whole that she's involved with. And
her efforts have touched more people than just you and your family.
Oh, yes.
How has she affected the generations in your family, for instance, and how many generations does that go back?
Well, from my grandmother, it would be 5 generations that she's doctored with my family.
Could you expand upon that? Tell us how many. It was your grandmother and then?
My grandmother and myself, my grandmother, my mother, myself, a niece, and a great nephew. So.
What do you think about that?
God, that's something.
Still practicing?
5 generations.
And she's still practicing now?
Oh, yes.
She see all these people still, or she still see all these?
How many patients a day will she see on average?
It will vary. Probably 30 to 35.
Well, let's see. Those are generally the comments we want.
I just think the help, you know, her being so helpful to all of the people of the community is really what's, I really do.
You still enjoy working here? What do you get out of working here? No.
Don't ask me that. I'd like to retire.
Well, we know that. But I mean, 25 years, you must have seen a lot of stuff.
I have. And yes, I've enjoyed working here, really. Yeah.
How is she to work for?
Fine, I never see her.
35 patients a day, I guess so.
Well, and then when she was delivering the babies, my God, it was.
Where did she deliver those babies back before the St. Clair?
Right back there. Instead of turning right, turn left, and you've been in where the beds and things were.
So tell us.
I don't know. Now, I wasn't here in that.
But from what you understand, tell us that she before the medical center
Was here, yeah.
She delivered babies.
She delivered the babies in the rooms over across the hall, and the mothers, I assume, would come in and stay until delivery and then go home.
Didn't she travel for days too?
Yes.
Delivering babies throughout the area?
Throughout the area, yes. She did.
Can you think any?
What was that?
I'm former president. I was here as president from 1987 to 1992, but I was also here as a department chairman and dean for 11 years, beginning in 1960 and running until 1971. So I go back 37 years.
Into this area. Are you from this area?
No, I'm not. Actually, my home state is Illinois.
Okay, came from Illinois. So 37 years. In that time, have you known Dr. Caudill?
Well, I met Dr. Caudill, I'm sure, within just weeks after we were here in 1960. She's been our family doctor when we were in Moorhead from 1960 until the present time.
So she was your family physician.
Uh-huh.
How well do you know her?
Well, I think I know her well now. Earlier it was a professional relationship, but over the years we've gotten to know them, both Louise and Susie. We've gotten to know them very well. They have visited us out on our island place in the summer. We play bridge with them, and so we know Dr. Caudill and Susie, I think, pretty well, and we know especially Louise's family.
Okay, so you know the whole family.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me, in your opinion, how has she helped the university?
Well, I'm sure over the years that she has helped students in many ways, probably thousands, maybe tens of thousands, by counseling them, by serving as their physician. And probably, we'll never know, a lot of that time was probably donated because she's always had a love for the university. She was associated with the university before she became a doctor. She feels very close to this university. They both do. I know when I was president, anytime they had an opportunity to be on campus, they always came. They always accepted invitations. I have noticed since I've retired, they're still on campus whenever there's a public function. But she's been a real booster of Moorhead State University.
In what capacity would you think? Just the lives she's touched, or outside of the community, or just
Well, I think mostly the lives that she's touched and the people she sees. A lot of university people went to her when there were very limited medical facilities here in Moorhead. I would assume she treated most of the university folks. And so she's just been a great friend and a person that speaks well of the university, and she's just been a great friend.
I noticed up on campus, right down the street, we are on campus, I'm sorry, I've been several places in 2 days, I've forgotten where I'm at. The bell tower that's being erected has her name on it, down at the base there.
Well, that's actually, that is a gift from her sister, Lucille. And Lucille wanted to honor her husband, and so Lucille gave the university a substantial gift to build the tower and to put their names on it. I believe I'm correct that Louise's name is not on the tower. That's her sister.
Oh, okay, that might have been what I saw. It's covered
Her
up
sister's
today.
right. Her sister's a couple of years older than she. Wonderful lady, and also a person that likes this university a lot.
She's from this area also.
Sure. See, I knew Louise's and Lucille's mother and dad back in the '60s. So I've known the whole family.
What about that family? I don't know much.
Oh, a wonderful family. He was a judge and very well, highly regarded and respected in the community. Just really fine people. And as I recall, he deceased first. We used to call their mother Mama Caudill. She's a sweet lady, and she drove a Cadillac, and she was a tiny lady, and you could just barely see her head above the steering wheel. And I don't think she could see really well either out of the car or as she became older. And we always knew that whenever we saw Mama Caudill driving and turning a curve or a corner or making an execution, you always kind of got out of the way in respect to her, because sometimes she didn't do it that well. But yeah, they were just a fiction, Moorhead. They're a wonderful family.
Did they grow up in town here, the whole Caudill family? Or
I don't know that. I know where Judge Caudill and the family lived. They lived on Wilson Avenue. When they were still living, I knew their house. But I'm not sure how long they lived in Moorhead. They may have lived outside of Moorhead or even on a farm at some point. I don't know that.
So you've been here 37 years. The hospital's 34. What do you know about that?
Well,
Bring that about or whatever.
when I came in 1960, we didn't have a hospital, of course, and Louise had the biggest and best facility in the community. It was a clinic. It was really a birthing clinic. As you know, she assisted in the birth of over 8,000 babies, and the mothers to be would go to her clinic, and they might be there. Well, they'd be there through labor, and then they might be there 3 or 4 hours or 5 or 6 hours after the baby was born, because and that would depend on how many people were waiting to get in. But she was terribly busy, and she could see that there was a need for a hospital. And I doubt if we would have had a hospital, maybe not at all. We certainly wouldn't have had one at the time we were able to get the first hospital without Louise and her vision of a hospital and what it would do for Moorhead and the region. And also, she had developed such a rapport with people in town and the movers and shakers in town that she could approach the right people and tell them about her vision. And we developed the hospital as a community with everybody contributing. It was, I know the university made a major commitment at that time, and then we had an addition. We came back and asked the university to give again, and there was a third campaign that I'm aware of. And so, yeah, the university helped make it happen, but Dr. Louise Caudill made it happen.
Very good. Getting back, you said, now from what I gathered from some history that I found, she taught here?
Yes. She taught health and physical education here when we were called a state college, as I recall, and made her decision quite late in life to go to med school. And she was kind of a pioneer in that regard, because there weren't many women that were in medical school, and there were very few women that graduated from medical school. And so she was really a kind of a pioneer, but that's consistent with her whole life. She's kind of a pioneer, you know. She and Susie worked these mountains, sometimes on foot and on horseback. Then she came here and developed a clinic. Then she helped develop the hospital. She's really very much of she doesn't take credit for things. She's very quiet about that and kind of wants to always be in the background, but she's a force that you need to reckon with.
So I met her yesterday. was wonderful. We talked to her yesterday.
About over 8,000 babies. She delivered my 2 sons while we were here, so there's a very personal tie to Louise and Susie in that regard. But Louise had the ability, when you went to her office, she had the ability to make you feel that you were absolutely the only patient she ever saw. And she would just, you know, give you her absolute attention. And one of the differences between Louise and a lot of medical people is that she listened to every word you said. And she sometimes listened for words that you didn't say. And she kind of treated the whole person in that regard. And since my whole family went to her, at one time she had all 6 of us as patients, she literally treated us as a family. And I have the highest regard for her in that respect. Also, during the 60s when we were here, there were times when we needed to see a specialist. And Louise never hesitated. I think some general practitioners maybe hesitate too long. They want to make sure that, you know, that they have treated the patient and feel that they can. But Louise always knew her own limitation. And whenever she felt you needed to see a specialist, she didn't hesitate a moment in recommending that. And I was told by several specialists in Lexington in the 60s, and again when I came back in 87, that she does one of the best jobs of pre-diagnosis of any of the medical doctors in the field that sent patients to specialists in Lexington. They have a high regard for Louise in the medical community in Lexington.
Wow, that's good. I've not heard that, so that's very good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
Let me think. Okay.
Even though Louise has been in the profession for a long time, and she's not a young person any longer, she still has done a wonderful job of keeping up with her profession. She regularly, over the years, she and Susie regularly attended conventions and conferences, both in-state, out-of-state, national conferences. And I know personally that she spends every Wednesday when the office is closed, she spends that day reading. And she really does keep up. I've gone to specialists in Lexington and I received a new medication. They would tell me it was new, it's something new on the market, and they thought it would be very helpful and better than something else. And I would mention that to Louise, or maybe just ask, and she already knew the name of the medication, and yeah, it is a fine medication, and I'm beginning to prescribe it, which proves my earlier statement that I think that she does a wonderful job of keeping up with her profession, and when she prescribes a medication or treatment or drugs, I think she knows what she's doing.
That's really, isn't that wonderful?
One other thing I
never know.
I'd like to add that, first of all, Louise is just a wonderful person, a wonderful human being. And she's also a great bridge player. In fact, she plays an absolutely great hand of bridge. And my wife and I have the privilege of playing bridge with Louise and Susie often on occasion here. And so we see the fun side of her, you know, where she really enjoys playing bridge, and she enjoys having the best score. But her mind is just as sharp as it can be, and she can replay the game. She can replay the game after the game is played as well as a young bridge enthusiast. She's just a very good bridge player.
Sounds social. Yes.
Okay.